Despite the swirling uncertainties and public skepticism from UFC CEO Dana White, Jon Jones remains steadfast in his ambition to headline the historic UFC event tentatively planned for the White House in June 2026. The former two-division champion, who briefly retired this past summer, has identified a return on that landmark card as his primary goal, specifically targeting a blockbuster super fight with the current light heavyweight kingpin, Alex Pereira. In a recent social media Q&A, Bones provided fans with an update on his status and his hopes for the future. When directly questioned about the potential Pereira matchup, Jones indicated that the ball is no longer in his court, stating that talks are currently out of my hands. However, he was quick to affirm his own physical readiness, revealing that he is actively getting in shape and feels completely capable of hopping into training camp on short notice. In a notable show of flexibility and prioritization of the fight itself, Jones added that he is willing to cede the main event spotlight for the White House card if it means securing the bout with Pereira, underscoring just how much he wants this legacy-defining opportunity. This accommodating stance may be a strategic response to the significant public reluctance from his boss. Dana White has repeatedly expressed major doubts about booking Jones on the card, pointing to the fighter's long and complicated history of outside-the-cage incidents that have derailed major events in the past. White has famously labeled Jones's chances of fighting at the White House event a 1,000,000-to-1 long shot, creating a very public rift between the promoter and his star fighter regarding his reliability. Amidst this career uncertainty, Jones has been keeping a high international profile. He recently visited Chechnya, where he was hosted by the controversial head of the Chechen Republic, Ramzan Kadyrov. Kadyrov, who has been accused of severe human rights violations and is sanctioned by the United States, was described by Jones simply as a great host during the trip. The visit included a series of high-octane activities, from a playful impromptu wrestling session with UFC middleweight champion Khamzat Chimaev to handling high-powered weaponry, including an RPG. These posts from Chechnya present a fighter living life on his own terms, even as the path back to the UFC's most prestigious stage remains fraught with logistical and political hurdles. For now, Jon Jones is training, waiting, and hoping for a chance to make the White House card a reality, but the final decision rests with a promotional apparatus that remains deeply wary of his past.
The featherweight division is poised for a pivotal clash as veteran contender Arnold Allen is reportedly slated to make his return against the surging knockout artist Silva at the landmark UFC 324 card in January. This potential matchup, first reported by Mike Heck of MMA Fighting, represents a critical juncture for both fighters' careers and serves as a high-stakes addition to the promotion's inaugural event on its new broadcast home, Paramount+. For Arnold Allen, this fight is an opportunity to forcefully reassert his position in the title conversation. The British fighter, who was once on a sensational 12-fight winning streak in the UFC, has faced recent setbacks in closely contested battles against top-tier opponents Movsar Evloev and the legendary Max Holloway. However, he successfully snapped that two-fight skid with a dominant performance against Giga Chikadze last year, reminding the division of his well-rounded and durable skill set. A key statistic in his favor is the fact that he has never been finished in his professional career, a testament to his resilience and technical soundness. A victory over a dangerous, highlight reel fighter like Silva would be the perfect statement to leapfrog him back into the mix alongside other contenders like Diego Lopez, Jair Rodriguez, and Aljamain Sterling, all of whom are vying for a shot at Alexander Volkanovski's featherweight throne. Standing in his way is Silva, a fighter known for delivering violent endings and seeking to derail Allen's comeback narrative. Silva's lone UFC loss came against the highly touted Diego Lopez, and he has otherwise built a fearsome reputation by finishing formidable opponents such as Bryce Mitchell, Melsik Bagdasaryan, and Drew Dober. His mission will be clear: to accomplish what no other fighter has done and become the first person to knock Arnold Allen out. This classic striker versus grappler dynamic, blended with the pressures of a new broadcast era for the UFC, makes Allen versus Silva a compelling and strategically significant bout. While the fight is not yet official, its placement on the UFC 324 card signals the promotion's intent to kick off its Paramount Plus partnership with a deep and compelling lineup, the full scope of which is expected to be revealed in the coming weeks.
The simmering tension at the top of the UFC welterweight division has erupted into a public war of words, with the undefeated Shavkat Rakhmonov launching a blistering social media attack on Ian Machado Garry's claim to a title shot. Despite typically maintaining a quiet and stoic demeanor, Rakhmonov took to X to deliver a pointed and calculated critique, dismantling Garry's recent accomplishments with surgical precision. In a post written in what appeared to be flawless English, Rakhmonov bypassed traditional trash talk in favor of a stark, fact-based argument. "No trash talk, just facts," he began, immediately setting a tone of cold, hard logic. He then proceeded to list his evidence. "Ian Garry lost to me while I was injured. He hasn't finished anyone in his last 6 fights, and protests nearly stopped him. Doesn't sound like a #1 contender to me." This three-pronged assault directly targets the core of Garry's current campaign. Firstly, Rakhmonov reminds the MMA world that he holds a victory over Garry, a decision win at UFC 310 last December, and he adds the significant context that he was fighting through an injury, implying the outcome could have been even more decisive. Secondly, he highlights Garry's recent inability to secure finishes, pointing to a 6-fight streak of decisions that in Rakhmonov's view lacks the dominance expected of a top contender. Finally, he references Garry's most recent win over Carlos Prates, a fight in which Garry was visibly hurt and nearly finished, using it as evidence of vulnerability. This public takedown comes at a critical juncture. While Rakhmonov has been sidelined for a year recovering from injuries sustained in their fight, Garry has been active, scoring victories over Prates and former champion Belal Muhammad. This activity has propelled Garry to the #2 spot in the official rankings, leapfrogging the inactive Rakhmonov and putting him in prime position for a shot at champion Islam Makhachev. Rakhmonov's post is a clear attempt to halt Garry's momentum and reassert his own claim, arguing that a past victory and a more dominant fighting style should outweigh recent activity, especially when that activity has been less than conclusive. With Rakhmonov now targeting a return in early 2025, this heated exchange sets the stage for a major divisional clash, either between one of them and the champion, or a potential rematch to settle the score once and for all.
The legal and professional repercussions from the viral cage-side brawl at UFC 322 are escalating far beyond a simple lifetime ban, with the New York City Police Department's active investigation now threatening criminal charges for Dillon Danis and members of Islam Makhachev's team. While UFC CEO Dana White moved swiftly to permanently ban Danis from all future UFC events and initially attempted to frame the incident as a closed matter, the involvement of city authorities has opened a new and more serious chapter. The chaos, which erupted after Danis allegedly provoked Makhachev's entourage, was captured on video and showed team member Magomed Zainukov landing repeated sucker punches, transforming a personal feud into a very public issue of criminal assault. The situation was decisively elevated when New York City Mayor Eric Adams intervened with a firm public statement, making it clear that the city views the melee not as a promotional issue, but as a matter of public safety and criminal justice. These assaults at Madison Square Garden are completely unacceptable, Adams stated on X. The NYPD is already conducting a full investigation, and everyone responsible will be held accountable. The mayor's use of the phrase "everyone responsible" is particularly significant, indicating that the legal net could be cast widely, potentially ensnaring both Danis for his role as the instigator and the members of Makhachev's team who participated in the physical retaliation. This creates a complex scenario where multiple individuals, including those not signed to the UFC roster, could be facing assault charges. For Danis, the consequences are mounting rapidly. Any faint hope of a future UFC contract has been extinguished, and his immediate fighting future is now under a cloud. Scheduled to compete on December 22nd, it remains uncertain if the NYPD's investigation will impact his ability to participate in that event. The incident underscores a stark divide in how the incident is being handled. While the UFC has exercised its right to ban an individual from its private events, the city of New York is asserting its authority to pursue criminal accountability for the assaults that occurred within its jurisdiction, ensuring that the fallout from the UFC 322 brawl will continue long after the event has ended.
The combustible mix of high-stakes, simmering rivalries, and volatile personalities that defines the modern UFC exploded backstage at UFC Qatar, creating a series of incidents that nearly overshadowed the official fight card. At the heart of the chaos was middleweight champion Khamzat Chimaev, who, despite not having a bout scheduled that night, managed to embroil himself in two separate physical confrontations, leading his friend and training partner, Arman Tsarukyan, to wryly note that Boers had gone a perfect 2-0 for the day outside the cage. The first flashpoint occurred during the fighter's arrival and entry into the arena, a process typically governed by strict security protocols. According to Tsarukyan's account, as the fighters were making their way into the venue, a security guard pushed Chimaev and instructed him to go back and re-enter the building, allegedly as part of a standard procedure. For a proud and volatile fighter like Chimaev, the physicality of the instruction was an immediate provocation. He reacted instantaneously, shoving the guard back with force. This act of defiance triggered a protracted standoff with event security and local law enforcement. Tsarukyan detailed the chaotic scene in which the police were called to remove Chimaev from the premises, only for the indomitable fighter to repeatedly find his way back in, turning the pre-fight preparations into a game of cat and mouse. This initial skirmish set a tense and unpredictable tone for the rest of the evening, indicating that Chimaev was in a particularly confrontational mood. The second and far more public incident unfolded later in the evening, following Ian Machado Garry's decisive victory in the welterweight co-main event. Flush with success, Garry approached Arman Tsarukyan for a post-fight greeting. The exchange between the two was, by all accounts, cordial. However, as Garry turned to depart, he made the fateful decision to reach out and touch Khamzat Chimaev on the shoulder. The gesture, seemingly intended as a casual acknowledgement, was interpreted by Chimaev as a profound sign of disrespect. In a burst of rage, Chimaev forcefully shoved Garry, causing a sudden and dangerous escalation. Security personnel, likely already on high alert from the earlier incident, swarmed in to separate the two high-profile fighters before punches could be thrown. A visibly annoyed Garry was heard chastising Chimaev, calling his behavior childish, and pointing out that he was meant to be a champion of the sport. He urged Chimaev not to tarnish Tsarukyan's own victorious moment with a needless brawl. In the aftermath, Chimaev provided his own justification for the explosive reaction. He claimed that Garry had not merely touched him, but disrespectfully punched or slapped him on the back. For Chimaev, this was not a gesture of respect, but a calculated act of provocation designed to create hype and headlines. He derisively compared Garry to Conor McGregor, accusing the Irishman of being a poor imitation who would never attain the notoriety of the sport's biggest star. "He's never gonna be Conor. He's a shit fighter," Chimaev declared, framing his own aggression as a justified response to an insult. However, available video evidence of the encounter does not clearly show a punch or a slap. It depicts Garry touching Chimaev's shoulder, leaving the true intent and force of the contact a matter of intense speculation and a classic he said dispute.
This series of backstage altercations underscores the fragile and often explosive ecosystem within a major UFC event, where ambition, ego, and culture clash in confined spaces. While the immediate drama has subsided, the incidents have further cemented Khamzat Chimaev's reputation as the sport's most unpredictable firebrand, and have added another chapter to Ian Machado Garry's ongoing narrative of attracting conflict. As both men return their focus to their respective divisions, the lingering animosity ensures that any potential future matchup between them would be among the most highly charged and anticipated contests the promotion could make.
The landscape of the UFC strawweight division has shifted dramatically, with Mackenzie Dern's recent ascent to the throne. And now, the conversation has immediately turned to the crucial question of her first title defense. Having achieved her ultimate goal of capturing UFC gold by defeating Virna Jandiroba earlier this year, Dern finds herself in a position where the challenge is no longer about reaching the top, but about solidifying her legacy and proving she is the undisputed force at 115 pounds. The championship was hers for the taking after the former champion, Zhang Weili, made the strategic decision to vacate the strap and pursue a champion versus champion super fight against the legendary Valentina Shevchenko for the flyweight title, a gamble that ultimately did not pay off for Weili, who fell short in her bid to become a two-division champion. This chain of events has created a fascinating dynamic for the new champion Dern, who must now navigate the waters of her first defense with the formidable former champion waiting in the wings. The task of mapping out this critical first step in her reign falls not only to Dern herself, but to her highly respected coach, Jason Parillo. In a recent interview, Parillo left no room for ambiguity when stating his preferred opponent for Dern's inaugural title defense, clearly and emphatically throwing down the gauntlet to the division's former ruler. "I would love to see her fight Weili. I want her to fight Weili," Parillo told MMA Junkie Radio, making his position unmistakably clear. This call for the Zhang Weili fight is particularly interesting given Parillo's previously cautious approach. He revealed that even after Dern's victory over Amanda Ribas, which positioned her for the title shot, he had initially advocated for one more preparatory fight before challenging for the belt, feeling that a third bout after a personal little break would have allowed her to settle into her rhythm more completely. However, the opportunity for the title came sooner, and Dern seized it, proving her coach's faith was not misplaced. Now, Parillo's belief in his fighter is absolute, and he sees the most meaningful fight available as the one against the woman who previously held the crown. Parillo also provided a tactical analysis of why he believes this is the right moment for such a high-stakes fight, specifically addressing Zhang Weili's recent loss to Valentina Shevchenko. He expressed his strong anticipation that Weili would return to strawweight, not just because of the defeat, but because of the decisive and clean nature of the shutout. He acknowledged the significant role that size and strength played in that flyweight contest, noting that a 10-pound jump in a smaller weight class is a substantial physical hurdle. However, he was quick to credit Shevchenko's technical mastery, pointing to her genius-level control of distance and her ability to seamlessly apply her elite striking background to the mixed martial arts arena as the primary factors in her control over Weili. For Parillo and the new champion Mackenzie Dern, this creates a perfect storm. A motivated former champion returning to her natural weight class, a narrative-rich matchup for the fans, and the ultimate opportunity for Dern to remove all doubt and begin her reign by defeating the very athlete who once dominated the division.
Fresh off his historic victory to become a two-division UFC champion, Islam Makhachev finds himself in the enviable yet complex position of having a deep pool of contenders vying for a shot at his newly acquired welterweight throne. The landscape of the 170-pound division grew even more crowded and compelling following the events of UFC Qatar, which showcased a new wave of talent and solidified the claims of established threats. With his dominant win over Jack Della Maddalena, Makhachev has ushered in a new era at welterweight, and now the entire sport is watching to see who will be the first challenger to step up. One of the most vocal contenders to emerge immediately after UFC Qatar was Ian Machado Garry, who staked his claim on the back of a significant victory over former champion Belal Muhammad. In the aftermath of his win, Garry boldly declared himself the most deserving candidate for a title shot, attempting to leapfrog other contenders in the queue. When asked about Garry's call-out, Makhachev responded with a measured and diplomatic tone, acknowledging the Irishman's credentials without committing to the matchup. "Yeah, that will be interesting," Makhachev stated in a media scrum. "He's also a good fighter. He's on a good winning streak and he's young. I think it'll be interesting." However, Makhachev also offered a subtle note of reservation, suggesting that Garry's performance, while solid, may not have been spectacular enough to automatically secure the title shot. "We'll see. He didn't surprise me yesterday. If he surprised the UFC, then maybe he will be next." This comment underscores that while Garry is in the conversation, his current two-fight winning streak, following the first loss of his career to Shavkat Rakhmonov in late 2024, may not be enough to eclipse other, perhaps more compelling options. That other, more compelling option is the undefeated Shavkat Rakhmonov, a fighter long perceived as a future champion. The narrative between Rakhmonov and the welterweight title has been fraught with misfortune. His victory over Garry was supposed to crown the next #1 contender, positioning him for a shot at then-champion Belal Muhammad. However, an untimely injury forced Rakhmonov to the sidelines, opening the door for Jack Della Maddalena to step in and capture the title instead. Now, with Makhachev as champion, Rakhmonov is still waiting in the wings, though Makhachev believes the Kazakh fighter's extended absence is a legitimate factor. Quote, "Shavkat hasn't fought for over a year. A contender can't sit out for a year with injuries and then come fight for the belt," Makhachev noted. Despite this, Makhachev did not completely close the door, leaving the ultimate decision to the UFC. Quote, "If he recovers and the UFC decides he's next, why not?" This creates a classic matchmaking dilemma. Does the promotion go with the established, yet inactive boogeyman of the division in Rakhmonov, or does it pivot to an active, vocal contender like Garry? Further complicating the welterweight picture are the impressive performances of other rising stars at UFC Qatar. Michael Morales and Carlos Prates both scored highlight reel victories that captured the champion's attention, adding their names to a growing list of fresh challenges. But beyond the immediate 170-pound contenders, a massive legacy fight still looms in the background, a potential clash with the current lightweight champion, Ilia Topuria. This is a fight Topuria has been aggressively pursuing, and the original plan was for Makhachev to defend his lightweight title against El Matador had Belal Muhammad remained welterweight champion. Their friendship and training history made Makhachev reluctant to challenge Muhammad, but once Della Maddalena won the belt, the path was cleared for Makhachev to move up and relinquish the 155-pound strap. Now, while the fight against Topuria remains a blockbuster possibility, Makhachev expressed significant reluctance about returning to the grueling lightweight weight cut. Quote, "It would have to be a very good offer for me to start cutting back to 155, Makhachev admitted, highlighting the physical toll. "Because I'm not young in this sport anymore, and every weight cut takes years off your health. It's not as easy as before to cut weight." With a plethora of options, ranging from the new blood at welterweight to a champion versus champion super fight, Islam Makhachev is at the center of the UFC's future plans. He may have just reached the summit of a second division, but the calls from challengers are already echoing loudly. For now, the champion is content to let the dust settle, expecting the UFC to provide clarity on his first title defense in the coming weeks. As he stated, "I think the UFC will decide soon. I think we have at least 3 or 4 contenders now, and soon, probably in about 2 weeks, it will be clear who the next challenger will be."